Welcome to the Love, Sex, and Leadership podcast, where you can discover simple tantric teachings to embody your true power, awaken your soul's wisdom, and live an inspired life as a natural, intuitive, and heart-centered leader. Well, hello everyone. My name is Aaron Kleinerman. Welcome to another episode of Love, Sex, and Leadership. And I'm very grateful to have a friend, a man who's also given me some great business advice through the years. We met a long time ago when I used to live in LA at a business mastermind event that we were both attending. We both climbed Kilimanjaro together this last summer, which was an incredible journey, and very excited to have Sir Darren Jacklin here. Thank you for joining us on this podcast.
Grateful to be here, and thank you so much.
Absolutely. And I love your suggestion for the title of this with authenticity and vulnerability. And my experience of you as a man, I was reading through your bio. I know a lot about your background, but my experience of you as a man, both professionally as well as personally, is that you really lead and live with your heart on your shoulder from a place of wanting to be in loving service to the people around you. And I think that goes very far. Like everyone I see who you meet, who you interact with, they really feel the nature of how you want to show up and be in service to another. And I just really appreciate that in you. So thank you for showing up the way you do on this planet.
I appreciate it very much. Absolutely, yeah. And I'm someone who's quite analytical as well, and has lived in my head a lot, trying to analyze and figure things out as well. And very, very good at mastering compartmentalization. I think throughout my life, it served me, and benefits and drawbacks of that as well. And I think that we're at a time in this planet right now in regards to authenticity and vulnerability that people really want to be, dealing with things that really matter to them most in their lives, both personally and professionally. And I think also too is that people, if we're out there in the general public, we're on an airplane or in a shopping mall or walking down the street in a major city somewhere in the world, we hear four primary conversations. People talking about the news, the local or national or global news. We're talking about the weather, sports and traffic, or some political thing that's going on right now in 2024. And I think it's important to get into deeper, authentic, and vulnerable conversations, because for like myself, every year I come up with one word. And so my word for 2024 is aliveness. And so everybody I'm interacting with, whether it's virtually or in person, I'm thinking, how can I bring aliveness to this conversation that can enrich both people's lives, right? And have more joy and self-expression and playfulness. I'm 52 years of age now, so I'm thinking, how can I have more playfulness in my 50s now? Be more playful and more joyful and more fulfilled and more alive and more grateful, with gratitude and counting my blessings. So I think it's important.
Yeah, I love that. And my experience of you is a very alive, dynamic individual. And I'd love to hear like what kind of aliveness are you bringing into your world this year? What are some of the things that you're stepping into to bring that aliveness into your life?
I think I had, when you and I did Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, East Africa. So when you called me and made that call to me in 2022 and said, "Hey, I want you to be part of the team for my 40th birthday," I thought, well, why would you pick me? I'm not an athlete. Like that's freaking crazy. Like that is so out of that. That's an impossible goal. And it was like, I've had vision boards over the years, and I've got over 7,000 written goals for my life, personally, because I want to have a fulfilled life. But when I got to Tanzania in July of 2023, and I arrived there and I went and looked at Mount Kilimanjaro, I thought, oh my gosh, it's much bigger than those videos on the internet and those pictures on Google Images. And I was excited, but also really scared, because I thought, how am I going to get up there in 5 days to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro at 19,340 feet? So I think what really shifted for me in terms of aliveness was when I came down off that mountain, and then the integration period of time from that, and just taking it into my life, it transformed my life. Doing something like that I just never in my lifetime ever thought I'd ever achieve, even step foot on doing something like that. Like that was just way out of my realm of thinking of possibility, because I was not that guy. I never identified myself. And it's interesting now, because over the last, year since we've done Mount Kilimanjaro, I have people come up to me now and say, you're an athlete. And I never personally identified myself as an athlete. I identified myself as this clumsy kid growing up who was not good at sports. I'm very visual, auditory, then kinesthetic, but I'm the guy that you don't take to a dance class because I'll embarrass you, because I'll be out of sync. I'm the guy in the yoga class, in the hot yoga class, that's watching, everybody thinks, oh, you're watching the pretty girls. No, I'm watching to follow someone to guide and lead me because I'm flipping around on my yoga mat here, not in sync with the rest of the group. Right? I'm that guy. And so it was really fascinating to see not only the release in 50 pounds of weight for training development for Mount Kilimanjaro, but my mental health, but also the joy, the freedom, but also too the ripple of impact, Aaron, that I've had an impact on many people's lives from all over the world through social media by doing Mount Kilimanjaro. Because when I started to declare it publicly that I was going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, I had people that were doing interventions with me, like going for walks with me. It's like, Darren, listen, are you crazy? Like, are you going through a midlife crisis? Like, is everything okay in your life? Do you have a mental health breakdown? Like, I had some really interesting conversations with people in my family. Like, I had people getting together because it was just so out of that realm of who I was as a human being that I was just not that guy. And so I think coming back in the integration from Mount Kilimanjaro the last year, I've experienced now, and now I want more people to have that experience. And so like now I hike almost every day of my life. I bring people out all the time. I'm always collecting people from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all different age groups. I've got in Vancouver, Canada, my primary residence, I've got a group of over 200 active people on my WhatsApp private hiking group channel. I'm now, take a hike, build a school. So I've now got hikingfundraiser.com as a website. And we're actually bringing people out from all over the world now. And I'm accountable and responsible for building 100 schools around the world over the next 10 years towards global philanthropy by getting people out for mental health. So I want to thank you because you're the one that, planted the seed and shot up grew the fire, because I had no desire ever doing it. This is not part of my life plan or path in my life. So I'd say you disrupted my life in a positive way, but now it allows me to enrich other people's lives in regards to mental health awareness. Because we all know people in our lives that are impacted personally, professionally by mental health in all different areas. And so I think that I get great joy and fulfillment now out of seeing, because I look at so I'll give you an example. When I started hiking just 5 years ago, I was doing a hike in North Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And this hike would be a beginner hike. Kids would call it a bunny hill. Right. And kids in elementary school could get up this hike in about 45 minutes. If you're really slow, top an hour. My first time I did this 5 years ago, 2 hours and 48 minutes to the top. I got to the top completely exhausted, out of shape, out of breath, out of gas, completely exhausted. The two people I was with were licensed real estate agents in Vancouver. Well, they had open houses to go to. They're commissioned salespeople. So they had to get down the mountain, go shower and change, and go to their open houses on the Saturday. So I got stuck at the top of this hill. I wouldn't even call it a mountain, a hill. And I'm up there and I'm thinking to myself, do I actually call 911? Should I call the fire department, call search and rescue? How embarrassing that these kids and these families are coming up and down and I'm out up here completely exhausted. And so I rested for a bit. I did some breathing exercises, did some internal affirmations and self-talk, got back down the mountain. It was just under 6 hours round trip. And that was a defining moment, Aaron, where I said, I don't want to live my life this way anymore. I'm getting close to 50 years of age, and I've treated my body like a rental car, like a woodshed, completely out of integrity with my health, fitness, and nutrition. And that was a turning point in my life. And now I want to empower and enrich other people's lives to get them out into nature. Even if it's for a walk, it's for a hike. Even if it's I had a gentleman with me the other day who was extremely stressed, going through some relationship problems, some financial situations, going through a business breakup with his business partner, really under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. Okay, a lot of things are not working right now in his life. I asked him, I said, I want you to take off your shoes. And he's like, what? I said, we're gonna go barefoot on this. He's, what do you think we're doing? And he thought I was absolutely nuts, right? Walking barefoot. I had him take off his shoes and then his socks, and he's looking at me. He says, "You do not take a picture of me right now. This is not going on social media. This is embarrassing, Darren." And 15 minutes later, the guy was grounded, and he was just, and he's like, you could just see the stress melting off his physical being. It was incredible. But he thought it was absolutely crazy in the beginning. But I've started to do that now, where I take my socks and my shoes off. I walk barefoot on grass. I'm drinking, every day now, water with lemon in it. I squeeze lemons every day for alkaline in my body. I'm doing cold plunges. I'm going out in the mountains now, something I never did in my life. And I'm finding, waterfalls and going under, whether they're cold waterfalls or warm waterfalls, but glacier fed or mountain fed streams and creeks of water coming down with all the minerals in the water. And I tell you, my life is transformed. My mental health has totally changed from doing this. And it doesn't cost people money to do this. Like, you're not going to some commercialized spa somewhere. You're out in nature, just absorbing and just appreciating the beauty of nature. And so I'm bringing people and I'm collecting people on my journey with me to come out and do this. And it's changing their relationships at home with their families, with their spouse or partners or significant others, with their children, their coworkers and colleagues at work, the way they interact with human beings at the grocery store or the shopping mall. So it's just from my participation in doing this is now creating a ripple of impact on people's lives, which I'm so grateful for.
Amazing. Well, I love listening to your storytelling, and I love that I made the invitation. I
Yes.
remember when you came into my awareness, it was in a meditation, and I was like, Darren, I want to reach out to Darren. I feel like he's meant to be on this journey. And I love how much it impacted you and stepped you up. And also just, the philanthropic part of you that's really giving back. And, I'm actually just right in the process of acquiring and borrowing this beautiful piece of land in Portugal.
Beautiful.
And one of the visions I have there is I'll be doing permaculture, is bringing CEOs and individuals and getting their feet in the earth and getting them connected to the ground and actually help in building and creating. And, this beautiful natural spring river that's flowing right through the property. And so hearing you is just actually reminding me of how many people are so disconnected from that authenticity to nature, that
Absolutely.
deep connection to where we come from and who we are. And and I can see it even in your spirit and your wellness. Even from last time I saw you, you look so much more vibrant and alive, and it's really it's beautiful to witness and feel so much aliveness that's pouring through you, brother.
I'm starting to look younger. Like, I'm 52 now, and people around me are saying, Darren, you're looking younger. And I think it's being out in nature and all the oxygen and all the things that I'm doing. And it's really interesting. Like, as you shared, I appreciate what you're going to be doing in Portugal. It's fantastic. It's so fantastic. One of the things I learned about, I'll talk about authenticity and vulnerability is, I'm a very successful entrepreneur involved in lots of real estate deals and own a lot of real estate. And I own bookkeeping and accounting firms and a whole portfolio of companies. And one of the things I found now in terms of interviewing, whether they're employees or joint venture or business partners or investment partners, is I bring people out to come hiking with me. Because what I realize, when you take somebody hiking, they can't lie to you. The authenticity and vulnerability comes out. If somebody does not have good flexibility or good balance or range of motion or core strength, it shows in how they hike. If somebody doesn't drink a lot of water and they're dehydrated, it shows in their hiking. When I learn about mental toughness, right, with people dealing with a lot of negative self-talk, or they've had a lot of childhood trauma, for example, or life experiences, I bring people out now nighttime hiking into the wilderness. And it's really interesting from building rapport with people, because the first thing that people think about in their minds, and they may not say it out loud, because they don't know how it's going to land, but they're like, oh my gosh, are we going to get eaten or attacked by a wild animal? And so people automatically have to trust you because you're taking them out into the wilderness, into this unknown charted territory. And I find that if you take somebody to a coffee shop or a restaurant, you have a breakfast, lunch, or dinner with them, you get to know people. But again, it's more surface. It's not deep, authentic, vulnerable, raw, enriching conversations. But I find when we're out on a hiking trail in nature, and I'm taking you out early in the morning for a sunrise hike or a sunset hike or a full moon hike, people, their authentic true self shows up. Their vulnerability side shows up. I've had conversations with men, top CEOs, billionaires, celebrities, royalty people from all over the world that would never tell me stuff. But after a 2.5, 3 hour hike, going to the top of a mountain, people start to open up. The layers of the onion start getting peeled away. And that vulnerability in that 5-year-old or 7-year-old boy or girl shows up in people. So I encourage you that if people are in business, if you're raising capital for a business or a startup company or an invention, take your investors out hiking. If you're looking to date somebody and you're on these dating apps and these websites to date, rather, if you want to get to know somebody at a deeper level so you don't waste your time, so it's more of an interview versus a date to qualify and protect your time, then take somebody out hiking. I have a lot of single women in some of my hiking groups that I have. And they've got off the apps and off the dating sites, the paid ones or the free ones, and they come out now and they interview the guys where they're out in nature and they trust their female intuition. And they're like, oh my gosh, because behavior never lies. Behavior never lies. And so you see people's real behavior and how they show up. Are they prepared? Did they bring water? Did they bring snacks? Did they interact? Are they really quiet? And then I've also seen people, the aliveness of people who are completely shut down, deal with things going on in their lives that they don't want to talk about. But then once they're in nature for a period of time, it's like they start to open up and they realize, okay, my life's difficult compared to what? It's not really that difficult. I'll get through this and I'll get on with this. And so I just find that, we're at a time right now where people are under a lot of pressure, a lot of stress with a lot of negativity in the media, social media, all that stuff. And people need to get back to basics of nature and grounding themselves and being out there where they can be around like-minded people and just have those authentic and vulnerable sharing conversations where they don't feel judged because, as human beings, we want to look good and we don't want to look bad. And we play this dance in our head all the time of looking good, looking bad all the time. And I think if we just be, it makes such a difference.
Yeah, and I feel like nature provides such a place to do that. I know for myself, like, and I can feel like um, like hiking.com,
Hikingfundraiser.com.
hikingfundraiser.com, Darren Jacklin, hiking the new way. And it's beautiful. And, for me, some of my deepest insights I've had along the way in this journey have been when I've been with nature, completely surrounded with nothing but the birds and the mountains and just this deep connection to the deeper mystery of life, the deeper
Yes.
connection to a purpose beyond my mind trying to validate itself or my ego trying to validate itself, and actually finding the deeper core of it all. And I guess a question inside of that, because I know
Sure.
you're working with a lot of CEOs and corporate people, when this conversation of vulnerability comes in, because I talked about conscious vulnerability and the importance of vulnerability as being a strong, conscious, powerful man. I speak about it in my book. But I feel like in a company CEO place, there's still a little bit of that mindset of like, can't be too vulnerable because there's some weakness there. So
For
I'd love
sure.
to just hear like how your perspective on this and where more conscious leadership can go around this conversation of vulnerability and really the revealing of oneself.
Oh, great question. Great question. So I had a very famous person, I won't mention his name, with me recently hiking, known all over the world. People know his name. And this is a guy that very high exposure, high visibility, very successful, achieve a lot of things, employs a lot of people. But he can't go to his board of directors or his advisory board or his executives in his companies and share what's really going on at home with his wife. Or he's dealing with loneliness is a big thing for him. For example, he feels very alone. He's like, who do I trust? Everybody's always wanting something from me or getting involved with something. He says, sometimes I'm scared to respond to my messages on my phone. But when I brought him out, I didn't want anything from him. I just wanted him to have a great time coming out for a hike with me, being out in nature. And he just opened up and authentically shared with me. And he shared with me things that he doesn't even talk to his wife or his own people in his own house about, that he's dealing with in terms of his own mental health. And so I think the thing is, a lot of times we go play pickleball or go golfing or play tennis or racquetball, a lot of people, or they do some kind of form of sports. But when you go golfing, you don't really connect deeply with people. When you're playing racquetball or pickleball, you don't really connect deeply with people. And I think the thing is, when you bring somebody out hiking, being out in nature, being in the forest, being with the trees, it brings off the mask that a lot of these people wear. And I've seen with so many people from all walks of life, all age groups. I have a lot of very successful entrepreneurs that come up with me, a lot of millionaires, multimillionaires, decamillionaires, hectomillionaires, all these people who've achieved a lot of financial success and wealth. And the thing is, the mask comes off when they come out hiking with me because there's nowhere to hide, right? Because I see them. I see their authentic, vulnerable, true self. And I think the thing is in terms of mental health, in terms of building culture, building teams with people, creating that energy that, I always share with people that like in business today, it's so important to take your employees. That's why we did with the hiking fundraiser, why we bring people out to do the hiking fundraiser, because you come out for your mental health for a few hours to support a great cause with Link Foundation. But then we build a physical bricks and mortar school that helps alleviate children from poverty around the world. We're going to build 100 schools around the world by Take a Hike, Build a School. So the thing is, I want to involve people to come out for their mental health, to be in a great community of like-minded people and know that you can just be yourself. Let your guard down, let your mask off, and just be. These people want nothing from you. They're not here to try to take something from you. They just be, because so many people. I had 3 close, good friends of mine, very successful, accomplished business entrepreneurs, this year commit suicide. And it
Wow.
really rocked me to my core, brought me to my knees the one day, like
Hmm.
crying, because I'm like, why would one of my great friends do this? Like, this guy was a
Hmm.
mental health coach, very successful, had a very successful
Hmm.
mastermind. People paid a lot of money to be in this mastermind, but this guy was all alone.
Hmm.
And yeah, he had all this material success and all these things going on, but he didn't have anybody to talk to,
Hmm.
and he
Hmm.
was alone. And I
Hmm.
feel a lot of men today and women feel loneliness. And we saw that
Hmm.
during the COVID-19, during the pandemic, during the lockdown. A lot of people became very disconnected and very self-isolated. And
Hmm.
so with a lot of these CEOs and executives and business and entrepreneurs, I bring a lot of them out hiking. And everywhere I go now, anywhere in the world, I've even been in Sarasota, Florida, and went hiking. Yeah, there's no elevation, but I went around a pond and stuff like that just outside of Sarasota, Florida. And so I feel now I'm bringing people all the time out with me, and the
Hmm.
conversations are changing with people now, because
Hmm.
they want to talk about things that matter most to them in their lives, things that they're dealing with, whether it's getting older, it's dealing with aging parents, it's dealing with their kids going off to college, university, it's dealing with kids that are staying home longer and living at home longer, and not knowing which job or career or direction or path they want to go in life. It's people that
Hmm.
are relationships now that, oh my gosh, our kids are now leaving the empty nest, and I don't know this other spouse or partner that I have here in this home with me, because
Yeah.
we've been so
Yeah.
busy raising a family and paying the bills. And so
Hmm.
there's a lot of things going on, and I just find that we bring people out into nature, and this is all new for me in the last few years, but it's transformed my life and the way I connect and interact with people deeply around the world. And so a lot
Hmm.
of these CEOs, it's important to bring out Steve Jobs from Apple. One of the things he always did was went for a walk.
Hmm.
Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple now, he loves being in the national parks across the United States.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
when I'm out hiking all the time now, I meet people there. Just recently, I was on the top of a mountain. It was a 21 kilometer, about 16, 17-mile hike, way up high elevation, near the Canadian Rockies. And I'm up there by myself. It took me 4.5 hours to get to the top of this mountain. And I met a man who was 88 and his wife was 86 from New Zealand. And I'm thinking to myself, here I'm 52, this guy's 88 and she's 86 at the top of the mountain.
Hmm.
And I started to cry. And I thought, wow, when I'm 88 years of age, I want to be like this man. The
Hmm.
vitality, the energy, his flexibility, his range of motion, his core strength, his balance was just incredible. This man.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
just the energy, having that conversation with this guy, he was living life to the fullest. He was fully
Hmm.
alive and fully self-expressed. So
Hmm.
I look at the
Hmm.
younger generation of guys in their 20s and 30s and 40s on their come up. They're watching me and they're watching you. I look at the guys in
Hmm.
their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. They're ahead of me. I'm watching them for longevity, vitality, for energy. Because a lot of times in business, people look at ROI, return on investment. What's the ROI? Here's 2 other metrics I always share with people. What's the ROE? What's the
Hmm.
return on energy? The return on
Hmm.
energy. And what's the ROL? The ROL, what's the return on life? So does it
Hmm.
multiply and expand? So when you do something, like when you do your seminars and retreats, it gives you great joy and fulfillment. It gives you return on
Hmm.
energy. It also
Hmm.
gives you return on life,
For
right?
sure.
And that's what
Absolutely.
I look at is return on life and return on energy, doing things that give you that joy, that enrichment, that aliveness, that fulfillment. And if it doesn't give you that, you start to change your environment, start changing what you're doing during the waking hours of your
Abs-
day.
Absolutely. It's if it doesn't give you that energy, then why bother? Why bother? Life is too short not to be doing the things that we love. Yeah, one of
Yeah.
the things that comes up for me is if I look at the younger generation, and I just turned 41 this last year, and I
Mm-hmm.
see a younger generation that, is very always on their smartphone, and much more disconnected from nature.
Yes.
And even what happened with COVID, a lot of people that are not only disconnected from nature, but disconnected from humans, and like
Mm-hmm.
almost a fear of connecting to humans. And I'm quite curious in the next, 5 to 10 to 15 years, how that's going to be impacting, especially around this leadership piece. Like what I
Absolutely.
hear you saying is this leadership that includes nature. What I'm going
Hmm.
to be doing in Portugal is including natures and inclusive of that. But the general majority of people, it's like it's AI, technology driven, away from nature, more into the screen, more
Hmm.
into the virtual worlds. And I'm curious your thoughts on all of this and how we as a society, as a humanity, can start to actually like revalue our capacity to have appreciation and connection to nature. And even more so at the younger generation that I feel like are quite lost in the screens. Like
For sure.
people, young kids that have grown up being potty trained on screens and their lives are on screens and everything's on the screen. Like I appreciate a screen, but I appreciate nature a lot more than the screen, but I'm in an older generation. So
Yeah.
like where do we lead as a humanity moving forward with conscious leadership around like utilizing the screen but not getting lost in it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, use it as a tool, but not all your life. Mental health plays a major part in this. I invite a lot of people to bring their kids out and their families out into
Mm,
nature. And some of these
mhm,
kids, they get into arguments and fights with their parents on the start of the hiking trail because they want to bring their cell phones with them. And I
mhm.
usually will pick a hiking trail where the cell phone doesn't work. Right, there's no cell phone connection. I do that, but on purpose. We have a trip plan for safety. But the thing is that taking time away. Look at how many people today in around the world live in apartment buildings or condos where there's so many stories up, but their feet are never on the ground. And then they go to a
Mhm,
commercial office building or a bricks and mortar office building, but they're never grounded. And so
mm,
it's a big thing is going, people live in major cities where they're not near parks, right? So
mhm,
they can go get their feet on the grass in a park or at a golf course or at a school ground. It's so important.
mm,
So I think is as we look at the research and the data that's coming over the next few years going forward, we're going to see a lot of mental health crisis. We're going to see a lot of depression, a lot of people that are dealing with things because the thing is that as human beings, all we are is a network of conversations. If
mm,
we look at social media, it's a network of conversations, and opportunities live inside of conversations. We're
mm,
taught as children, at least I was taught as a child, don't talk to strangers. Well,
mhm,
strangers have
mhm,
everything we want, everything we need, everything we desire in our lives. It's about having a conversation with strangers and interacting with them. And so they get to know us, like us, and trust us and build that rapport with us and that safety with us. And then commerce or fair means of exchange of business can happen, right?
mhm,
So a lot of
mhm,
these kids today, it's fascinating when they go in for a job interview how they don't make direct eye contact. Now, I understand sometimes cultures, depends on where you live on the planet, making eye contact is not right. But the thing is even having those interview skills, how
mm,
communication skills, leadership skills, team building skills. So
mhm,
important. How to
mhm,
play on a team, how to lead on a team. So when you bring people out into nature, you see, I like taking people up where they got to struggle a little bit, where they got to sweat, because when people have got to sweat and they got to struggle a little bit, you get to see who they really are, right?
mhm,
Because
mhm,
there's no makeup, they're sweating, they're stinky, all that stuff. That's the juice, the juice I say of where you get to see real people for real because they're
mhm,
not wearing
mhm,
the three-piece suit. They don't have all the jewelry on and all the makeup and all that stuff and all the bling on. You get to see them in their raw, authentic, vulnerable self. And I think
mm.
it's so important that if you look at physical education in public schools today, a lot of times it's decreased over the last few
Mhm,
years.
mhm,
They're not getting
mhm,
as much physical exercise. And as young boys, they need to burn that energy. They need to
mm,
run around. I was always taught as a kid, you got a lot of energy, go run around. Go
mhm,
do things like this. Get outside, go ride your bike, go run around. But we drive around the neighborhoods today in most major cities. You don't see all the bikes on the front yard anymore. You don't see kids all together in groups. You see
mm,
maybe in social groups on the internet, but not in
mm,
private groups where they're interacting, playing hide and seek or tag, especially in the first world here in North America. You don't see that. Now, if I take you to Africa, we're in a remote village in Rwanda or Uganda or Tanzania, East Africa, things are a little bit different there, but they don't have the technology and the electricity that we have here in the first world. And
mhm,
I, and it's important. And I think it's
mhm,
important for parents. I don't have any children. I don't have any kids, but it's important for people who have children to take them to parks, take them
mm,
to where there's rivers and lakes and streams, take them out into nature, take them out into the countryside. It's
mm,
so important because it does so much for our mental health. And I think
mm.
personally down the road, from my observation of seeing a lot of things that are going on, we're going to have some challenges going forward with a lot of the younger generation of being around this technology and on these screens all the time and relying on technology to make decisions for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a changing world moving forward, and I'm working a lot in the relationship framework, and you
Mhm.
see a lot of people who are often even like a little bit afraid of the depth of relationship that can
Yeah.
exist, and they're used to the internet connections and the online dating, which is beautiful, but it's almost in a way that is leading them continually back into this virtual world. And
Yes.
I love like the fact that I'm closing in on this place in Portugal, and I get planning to bring some children in the world, and having a community and a land and fruit
Hmm.
trees, and a place that I can really like go down to the river, and it's quiet, and swim and bathe in the river, and it's clean and fresh. Like that for me is something from a very young age has just nourished me so deeply.
Hmm.
And it's what I try to do, especially in groups and retreats, and the men's journeys and the tantra things, always being in beautiful locations that help people, essentially not even teaching them that much, but helping them remember the wisdom that nature
Yes.
provides. Nature is
Yes.
such an infinite wisdom of knowledge.
Yeah.
Mm.
And everything's connected in nature. And they're
Hmm.
all in
Hmm.
harmony and all in balance and all in communication with each other. All the trees are in communication and all the research is coming out now. I just recently enrolled into an online forest therapy certification training program. And it's not, I never thought I'd do something like this before, but I'm fascinated by what nature does with the trees, the healing components of, and the science behind it, and the research that validates it in regards to like pine trees and what it does for us. And, going into these ponds out in the wilderness, out in the mountains, and the minerals that come down from the water beds, from the creeks, and what those minerals do towards our physical body. Like, and there's
Hmm.
so much. So I want to get more relatable to this and understand more of what it's doing. So I bring somebody out into nature and they're dealing with stress or a loss of a parent or somebody that's passed away, or they're dealing with some grief or some trauma, that maybe nature can play a part in terms of helping in that healing journey and that healing process with someone.
Absolutely, and when it comes to leadership, the way in which plants can inform and actually create a lot of knowledge and awareness, and be able to heal our body from the inside, is really
Mhm.
how we've evolved as a species. But we've taken these plants and then we put them into little pills, and then we've got people addicted into pharmaceuticals, instead of actually reclaiming the origins of where a lot of the places come from. And the other thing I hear you saying in that is one of the things that's quite passionate for me, is more around the permaculture design, and how
Mhm.
we can consciously work with the design of our landscape, that we're in a symbiotic relationship with nature, and we're actually
Yeah.
listening to what the gardens and the trees and the fruit want to do. And this is really what I see moving forward. One of the immersions I'll be running next summer is called tantric living, which
Oh,
will be a
beautiful.
lot of the discourse around the same work I've been teaching, but then in that be taking people down into the land, and working with the tantric nature of the trees, and the herbs and the flowers and the plants, and really getting them grounded in that way.
Mhm.
And that's a lot of what I hear you saying with the people you're working with. And I think it's phenomenal. It's really what our world and our earth needs more and more of,
Yeah.
is to have that, ultimately, a deep relationship, to listen to what's present with nature, and let
Absolutely.
nature inform you in that way.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's great when we do nighttime hiking. Take people out at nighttime. It's pitch black out in the wilderness, and
Hmm.
I'll have people shut off their headlamps, and people lose their shit. They freak out. People start freaking out. It's fascinating. You know what I mean? And what goes on with people, and then you deal with that upsets for like, it's like a small 5-year-old kid having a tantrum for like 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden they just chill and they just surrender and they let go and they realize, okay, we're going to use the moon as our flashlight to guide through the hiking trail. It's gonna be a full moon hike, or we're just gonna use it, or we're gonna use our night vision. Be like, what do you mean night vision? I'm like, train yourself that you just say to yourself, I have night vision. And
Hmm.
now just train yourself. We're gonna walk through the forest when it's dark. And people are like,
Hmm.
wow. And then people finish after that hour, 2 hour hike. They're like, oh my gosh, do I ever feel so much energy in my body? And they want to go home. It's like, I can't sleep, right? Because and the creativity, the imagination. I've had people writing books or working on research papers or coming out or working on big projects in their work or business. I'm like, let's go do a nighttime hike. Like, you serious? Like, listen, you've got time for it. Let's go. And bring them out at 11 o'clock at night. Like, where are we going? Just trust the process. You're safe. We've got your back. You're gonna be okay. And then having them take off their clothes, pitch black, and we're going to go into this water, this pond. And I've been there many times in the daytime, so I know what's in the pond. And it's safe. And be like, are you nuts? Are you crazy? Come on, if you're 10 years old, would you do this? If we were a teenager, would you do this? And people go in there like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And,
Hmm.
and, and
Hmm.
people just feel so much joy from doing this. But it's incredible what you do that with people.
So what do you think it is? Because you see this common piece where a child has these very little inhibitions and they can run into that lake and they don't care, and then a certain age comes and there's a level of self-awareness that
For
comes
sure.
in, and then we kind of go on this journey of, oh my God, I can't do these things. And do you feel like that has to be a natural progress for a human, or do you think that self-awareness?
I think self-awareness and
um,
also financial responsibility that people think if I get hurt, I don't show up to work, I'm going to get behind on
mm,
paying my bills. Right? I'm going to
mhm,
go into
mhm,
financial debt. I'm going to have more
mhm,
financial stress or financial pressures. I think there's that accountability responsibility that feel like, oh my gosh, I'm trading time for money in my job or my career. And if
mm.
something happens, I don't have any lifeline. I have no insurance here. Right?
Mhm,
And so that's a risk for people. And so people calculate as an adult thinking, as kids, we don't think about that risk analysis, right? In our mind, we do crazy stuff as teenagers and young kids growing up. And as we get older, we think, oh my gosh, that may hurt. Like I remember when I was a young
mhm,
kid on my mountain bike, my BMX bike, man, I'd go over the handlebars and I'd get back up and keep going down that trail. Right now, then you go over the handlebars and you fall off your bike. Like when I was a kid, we didn't wear bicycle helmets. That's something we just
mhm,
didn't have. But now you see bicycle helmets everywhere, right?
mhm, mhm,
And
mhm,
and things like that. So I think the thing is that when going out into nature, it's that self-awareness, but also that risk thing, but also people, again, as our brains develop, we want to look good, we don't want to look bad, and we don't want to feel embarrassed, or we want
mm,
people to make fun of us or say something about us.
mhm,
And it's so
mhm,
important. But as kids, we just want to we want to experience things, we want to do things. And that's why I love bringing people out on the hiking trails, and whether morning hikes or nighttime hikes, because you bring people out. And like I had a guy recently came out with me 34 times. I followed up with him 34 times. He's like, "Darren, I'm too busy. I don't have time." He kept on blowing me off, blowing me off, blowing me off. After 34 times, he said, "Darren, you're not going to quit." I was, listen, I am committed to you having an experience out in nature. You need to be out in nature, right?
uh-huh,
It
uh-huh,
will make a difference in your family. And trust me, your wife will call or text me. It's like, I don't
mhm,
need, I don't have time for this. I'm like, no, I'm a stand for you. I'm standing that you're going to come out with me on a hike. I'm not a hiker. And it's like, no, I said, you're coming out with me. So he wore his running shoes. He came out with me. It was a beginner hike. He had the time of his life. And
mm,
also, too, I encourage people to go on an early sunrise hike. Get up when
mm,
it's dark. Go hiking in a hiking group. There's lots of groups around the world you can do this with. I've got a group next weekend. We're going out. We're taking people up in North Vancouver in British Columbia, just outside of Vancouver, to Mount Seymour. We're doing a sunrise hike,
mm,
and we'll have a large group. We're going to start at 3:30 a.m. Pacific time in the morning. We'll get up around
mhm,
5:36 in the morning. The sun will come up. So far the weather forecast is great. We have a clear sky, and people come up. You look around, and people are crying because
mm.
the sun's starting to come up, because the coldest part of a day is the hour before sunrise. We
Yeah,
saw that, we
yeah,
experienced it on Kilimanjaro. But
yeah.
for people to just feel that sun coming up and you're on top of a mountain with unrestricted view is just a magical experience.
I remember one of my most favorite hikes was Half Dome out in Yosemite, and I started at 11 p.m. and hiked through the middle of the night, and you get up to this absolutely glorious, slab of rock up high, up in the mountains, and the sun rises, and we were also there with a good group of people, and yeah, sunrise hikes, just it really, there's a deep, I think it touches into the place inside of us that knows an energy beyond this human body. It,
Yeah.
it, it taps into our eternal nature. It taps into a source that recognizes our relationship to me with death. Ultimately,
Yes.
it's like at some point I'm going to die, and this beauty, this magnificence, this incredible feat of creation is still going to be here. Two things I want to share. One, what's
Mhm.
amazing actually is in this property I'm getting in Portugal, they have all these intricate rock walls that they built for the waterways and the terraces, and
Oh,
they
wow.
were probably built in like the 15th, 16th century, but they're just woven through all of these like rolling mountains and hills up there in central Portugal. And what it reminds me is it's just the people's relationship with nature, even more so, 200, 300, 400 years ago. That's just so much different now because of this technology in the
Hmm.
sense. And the second thing I wanted to share is this past weekend, one of the participants in the that I was a friend as well, who does a lot of work in the Middle East, and he's working on a project now. I forget what country it is, but they're planting 7 million trees
Oh, wow.
in this very wealthy Middle Eastern country. Basically, because they're having so much wealth and so
Hmm.
much money and so like they're wanting to build more, another Dubai, another big place, another,
Sure.
let's throw all of our money into this. And he's like, actually, let's plant some trees. So he's been
Ah,
fighting
great.
against some of the government stuff, but they're like, oh yeah, well, this is pretty beneficial. And I've seen a lot of different movements in that way of
Sure.
replanting into the earth and giving back to the earth and helping this earth replenish itself. And when I was hearing this, it was just such a refreshing reminder that even in some of these places like Saudi and Qatar and Oman and places that are very thriving into this
Hmm.
metropolis world are actually still having some places to want to build and grow some trees and go into more of that connection to nature. It's actually quite refreshing to hear that
Oh,
that's
great
happening.
to hear that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. um, and so with your, the foundation you're building with the hiking and the schools, like what's the bigger vision of that? What's the piece that's really like I can obviously feel what's driving you and the
Sure.
impetus, but like what's if you could have the 5 year vision on that, what would it be for you?
Yeah, great question. So we have an international foundation called Link Foundation that Tete and I created. We've got a team. So it's an international foundation. It's registered foundation in Canada and the USA. And so in 2022, when I got knighted to Sir Darren Jacklin by the royal family out of Spain, I was one of two Canadian citizens, one of 24 people in the world to be knighted under, there's 8 different categories. So I was chosen out of the area of global philanthropy and entrepreneurship. When I took my oath with the sword, I made 2 public global declarations. Number one was to be a global ambassador for mental health awareness. And number 2 was to be accountable, responsible, and committed to building 100 schools around the world to help
Mm,
alleviate poverty, provide access to clean drinking water, food security, and education for the next generation of children living in impoverished conditions around the world, in different
mm,
villages and communities around the world. And so when I started hiking over the last few years and started documenting my journey, as a digital footprint on social media, I started to have more and more people starting to follow me because they're like so inspired by the journey, me releasing the weight to my mental health changing to starting to look younger. So the 5 year plan for me is to actually have Take a Hike, Build a School in multiple different cities throughout North America, then eventually internationally. And we're working on that
mm,
right now. I've got a team of people that are volunteers like myself doing this. And so we're going to have Take a Hike, Build a School. So you'll be in California, you'll be in Colorado, you'll be in Oregon, eventually we'll be in Australia, we'll be in Europe, we'll be in the UK, we'll be all over the world. So next 5 to 10 years, just like an Ironman or like a Tough Mudder or like a marathon, we'll have multiple different Take a Hike, Build a Schools going on around the world for people's mental health, but also the networking, the collaboration, the community building, just how much it makes a difference in their lives for their mental health and their stress. But then
mm,
we'll have this global village, this global community of like-minded people that want to be outdoors, want to be in nature, right? And what I find is that when people talk about environmental things, I find that if you take them out into nature or take them out on an ocean and they actually be on the ocean or be in nature, they have more of a love and appreciation for being environmental, being stewards
mhm,
of this planet. Because when you
mhm,
see the beauty of out in nature, you want to protect it and take care of it, right?
mm,
Same
mhm,
with our
mhm,
oceans. And so the master plan for this is to have 100 schools built over the next 10 years, but also as a legacy, have people come out to take a hike and build a school, because what gets rewarded gets repeated. And I want to catch people doing things right that benefit their health and also the longevity. There's a lot of research coming out now in regards to forest bathing and being out and hiking in terms of the flexibility, the range of motion, core strength, the balance, what it does for you. As we
mhm,
get up there in age in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, when the human bodies may start to slow down, the key thing is if you have a fall, it could change your life when you're older.
mhm,
But if you keep
mhm,
it up consistently with hiking and being out in nature, like that 88-year-old man, 86-year-old woman that deeply inspired me, right? When I saw them, I thought, man, I want to be like them. And
mm,
so what I envision with E2E, Elevate to Educate, where we take hike and build a school, is these all over the world. and we're enriching, we're creating aliveness, we're creating joy, creating fulfillment. Yeah, we're raising money to build these schools and create sustainability, but also as we build these schools, we can then build playgrounds. We can also grow with fruit trees and have gardens. So talk about permaculture. So now the children in these villages, no child goes hungry. And then we're
Mm,
also providing access to clean drinking water with food water filters. But also then too is then we can provide education so these children can grow up out of these impoverished conditions and alleviate them from poverty, providing education and nourishing them with good, proper nutrition and food that's harvested and
mhm,
grown off their lands, and also showing the importance of physical fitness and being out in nature now. So I'm excited about what we're doing. And I've seen, we've had a few hundred people the last 3 years that we did the pilot for Take Hike and Build a School. And we've had people from all walks of life, all age groups, all different backgrounds from many different countries come out. And we've already built our first school over in Liberia, West Africa, as our pilot school.
mhm,
We have over 300 children now from preschool to grade 6 going to school for the first time in their lives. And now
mhm,
we're actually starting the pre-planning for Honduras and Central America to actually build multiple schools over there over the
mhm,
next while. So that will start to
mhm,
unfold here very soon in the coming months. And so
mhm,
I think it's fun that people come out, they take a hike, they build a school, but then in 5 or 10 years now, they can go and they can take their family or their children, their grandkids, and they can go to a country that we've built a school. And they're like, oh my gosh, because I went out and took a hike, I've now helped build the school and
mm,
made a
mm,
difference. And so I just think it's
mhm.
such a great way to not only for our mental health, but our physical fitness, but also to make a difference in other people's lives.
Oh, I love this. It reminds me one of the at the end of always the initiation retreat, we do some type of community piece with either the land that we're on or in the area that we're in. And when I was running it in Nicaragua a few years ago, I got connected to a local charity school
Mhm.
that had young impoverished kids that were in there, and we brought all the guys in and we planted and we bought a bunch of trees in the local
Oh, wow.
florist, and then we planted a bunch of trees in the area. And the woman that was running it was married to a Nicaraguan man, was from the U.S., but she was really like her life mission there, showing up and supporting. And then we donated a bunch of money to it as well. And yeah, it was so beautiful to actually see her young child running around through the yard, and could
Wow.
feel that from our impact, it was going to then be able to support so many more children in the years to come. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate and love that vision, even in it's a little bit different in Portugal. It's still in the EU, so it's a bit
Sure.
developed. But some of these areas in central Portugal are quite impoverished in that way. And I've seen some old schools actually that we'll probably try to support in the local community as we get more
That's
involved
great.
there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great work that you're doing, brother. I
Thank you.
appreciate the
Great.
way that you show up, and yeah, it's beautiful.
Takes a
And
team
the
of
other
people, which we're grateful for, right? It's a team of people that work together.
Absolutely. The other thing I know we spoke about it briefly, but I know you've had this big new mission going up to Antarctica. So if you'd like to share a little bit about that, and I know
Yeah.
some things have changed with it, but tell me a little bit about your journey with that. What's happening?
So met a guy 20 years ago. He's in law enforcement. I was in a course in Vancouver one day, and this gentleman's now retired from law enforcement. He was a clandestine operator and worked with some real bad actors around the world, worked in human trafficking as well. And of course, his mental health and the stress of his job of a law enforcement officer. So he's done 6 of the top 7 summits in the world. He's done Mount Everest twice successfully. And his last one to complete is Mount Vincent, Antarctica, which is 16,050 feet in Antarctica. So he asked me if I would consider being open to going to Antarctica to Mount Vincent to actually go and summit Mount Vincent with him. So I thought, absolutely, again, like Mount Kilimanjaro, absolutely crazy. Again, this is winter time. It's cold weather, minus 30, minus 40 below freezing. So I thought, what a great way to get my body in the best shape of possible, but
Mm,
also take on doing things that most human beings don't do in the world to create visibility and
mhm,
awareness and exposure around mental health. And so I thought, you know what? So I've been training for the last year for this. We were planning to go in January of 2026, or probably 2025. But because we're going to wilderness, very cold weather environments, I figured we have to have more contingency plans because we have to self rescue. If something goes wrong, worst case scenario, we have to self rescue. So over the last couple months, we've been collaborating in regards
mhm,
to should we do it in January 2025 or should we go in January 2026? And I said, you know what? I'd rather err on the side of caution and safety, and let's go in January 2026. Let's get more training development under our belt first. Let's do a lot more scenario planning of best case, like the case of worst case scenarios. So we have a lot of scenario planning in place in terms of risk management. And then let's go in January 2026. And so
mhm,
tell you, it's been an incredible experience just dreaming of this, thinking about this, and that came as a result of you inviting me to Mount Kilimanjaro. Like you were the one that
Mm,
contacted me, and this is all ripple affected because of your invitation for me to come out. So that's one thing I'm grateful for and blessed with
mm.
my life is you never know when you just say yes to things how your life unfolds over the next few years going forward. Because I would have never ever dreamed of doing something like this. Never dreamed of taking a hiking, building a school, building 100 schools around the world through hiking. Never in my life if you wouldn't invite me to Kilimanjaro. That never would have happened as a result of that. So I want to thank you as the ripple
Mhm,
of impact for
mhm,
this. So I'm excited about mental health awareness, being one of the very few human beings on the planet to ever do this. It's about 1,200 people have actually done Mount Vincent around the world since the 1950s.
well,
And so I think it'd be just fun to go out there and have an experience, but it's also the camaraderie, the collaboration, the preparation, the training development, everything I learned about myself and about other people. And then just getting really, intimate with people because you're going to do something that very few humans ever do. So you really got to
mhm,
open up and look at your fears, your doubts, your worries, your insecurities, and your strengths of what you're capable
mm,
of doing as a human being. And so I just love the transparency, but the authenticity and the vulnerability of it, but also the inspiration to enrich other people's lives, but also to create that ripple of impact of younger men and women through social media watching what I'm doing and giving them hope and possibility that you can do things to make a difference in
mm.
your life. So I'm doing this as a thing for my own self because to expand myself, my consciousness, my awareness, but also to make a difference around mental health awareness, but also to build 100 schools around the world through Link Foundation and E2E Elevate to Educate.
Yeah, leading by example. Well
Yeah.
done. The last thing I'd love to bring up, just to get your perspective, around mental health and
Hmm.
especially around suicide, and we're both in male bodies, and especially since COVID, there's the male suicide rates have gone
That's
up.
right.
There's a lot of men that feel alone, they feel lost inside their world. And in regards to that, obviously you're being such an amazing advocate globally
Hmm.
for this mental health foundation, supporting them in this way. And to someone who might be listening now, or someone who's listening who has someone close to them who's, they can tell are on that edge, and like your friends that
Hmm.
just took their lives, what would you say, like, directly to an individual like that who's kind of on that edge, and they're, wondering whether it's worthwhile to stay in this body, and
Great question.
at that place?
If you can go someplace with them in private, like go for a walk with them, find out
Mm,
something that they love to do, like what's in their value system of what's important to them in their lives, right? Like, so
mhm,
sometimes, like I met somebody recently that, had body piercings all over themselves and tattoos and purple and pink and hair and all that stuff, which was suicidal. And this
mm,
person was very big into arts and culture and stuff. So I always find meet people where they're at, but go for a walk, go for a hike with them, go for a coffee or a meal with them if you can, and just sit down and really listen to somebody. Earlier this morning, I sent out text messages to people that I know that are dealing with some big things in their life, some big decisions, some stressful situations going on. I just said, "Hey, I've just said a prayer for you this morning. I was thinking about you. I love you, and I have your back." And I sent out 20 text messages this morning to people, and I've got 4 back so far. And I don't expect, I'm not attached to if anybody responds or not, but I had 4 people respond to those 20 text messages saying, "Wow, thank you so much. Your text message meant so much to me. I've
mm,
been dealing with a
mm,
lot of stress and a lot of things going on in my life right now." And it just shows that we care, right?
mm,
And that's important. So I think the biggest thing is, number one, is show that you care, whether it's having a conversation in person, by telephone, by text, by email. Because some people are more safe by a text message or an email or a direct message than meeting people face to face. And come from a place of non-judgment. Just
mm,
come from a place of just full, standing for this person, full appreciation, not judging them. I have a great good friend of mine, just came out on a hiking trail last a couple weeks ago. I brought him out. He's not a hiker. Brought him out, and he said, "Darren, I'm dealing with a pornography addiction,
mm,
and it's might cost me my marriage."
mm,
My wife
mhm,
found the pornography on my technology devices, and so I asked him, "What do you plan to do? You're going to go to counseling? You're going to go for therapy?" And he said, "Darren, what would you say?" And I said, "The biggest piece of advice I can give you from brother to brother is you need to look at your life and stop lying to yourself." When I
mm,
was in my
mhm,
early 40s, that was a big thing I confronted myself in my life, was to stop lying to myself. And I opened up my journal and I started to make notes of, where do I lie to myself and where do I lie to other people? Do I embellish?
mm,
Do I exaggerate things? And I just come full transparency with my life and realize, stop lying to myself, because as human beings, we lie a lot to ourselves. I lied
mm,
about my weight for many years. I was a foodaholic. I was addicted to sugar until I was almost 48 years of age, when I realized, oh my gosh, I am statistically obese. And I've got to stop lying to myself that I'm addicted to sugar and I'm addicted to fast food
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because it was a way of masking myself, right? Whenever I got
Mm-hmm.
stressed, I would go eat. I go eat fast food, go to Dairy Queen, go get sugars, things like that, go get sweets. And so I realized, oh my gosh, I'm not making healthy choices.
Mm-hmm.
And people
Mm-hmm.
around me knew, but nobody said anything to me. Right. And I can relate to being suicidal because in my early 20s, I was suicidal and did multiple suicide attempts to end my life because I was in a lot of pain. I had a lot of childhood trauma. And I just felt that if I share with people, it's just gonna, people are too busy, they don't want to listen to me. You know why? You know, I mean, but I didn't realize it, and I felt that I didn't matter. I felt that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't worthy enough, I wasn't smart enough because I had very low self-esteem. I was very insecure with myself. And so what I always focus on a lot of times too is positively and authentically praising and recognizing people, but it's coming from sincerity, like not faking it, being real with people, acknowledging, praising people, recognizing people, writing people handwritten notes, sending people text messages that you love them, you care about them, you appreciate them. These little things that make such a big difference in people's lives. So important. You know, even when I'm out hiking with people all the time, I'm always acknowledging people like, man, hey, we've hiked 4 times now. I noticed when you first came out how scared you were or how uncomfortable you were, or man, it was a big deal to get you to the top of this mountain because last time you were out of shape and out of breath. And so I'm always constantly positively reinforcing people and acknowledging people, but just building those relationships with people is so important. And one thing I'll share with this, people you think that have it all together are some of the most loneliest people I've ever met in my life. Some of the most loneliest people. You think that, you know, on the surface, they've got the beautiful family and they've got money in the bank and they've got a job or a career, they've got education, they got university or college degrees, they have a great business or a great corporate career or job, but inside they're struggling in silence. And I've met many of these people over the last few years on hiking trails that have opened up authentically with me and shared me what they're really dealing with. Because as human beings, every human being is either coming from a problem, we're in a problem, or we're heading towards a problem. Right? We're always dealing with something in our lives, personal or professional, that's going on. But a lot of times people don't know where to share and who to open up to. Are we going to be judged? Am I going to be accepted? Are they going to, you know, are they going to distance themselves from me if I really tell them what's going on? I had a good friend of mine recently just came to me and said, Darren, I have $5 million in debt right now, in bad debt, $5 million in debt. And I said, great, good for you. I'd celebrate. He goes, what do you mean? I said, Darren, I said, listen, you live in the United States of America and you got to go $5 million below zero. You know how many countries around the world that they barter and trade? If they don't have money in their pocket, they can't get credit cards or credit. They can't borrow money and go below zero. So be grateful that you live in the United States of America and you got to go you know how many people would love to have $5 million in debt? You know how many people would love to have like $5 million? So let's celebrate it first. And then let's look at a way to go out and serve more people and solve problems and turn this around with integrity and being integrity this and create a plan to actually move it forward in the next couple of years. And he goes, wow, I just feel so much stress and weight off my shoulders. I said, yeah, don't look at it as a bad thing. Look at it, you got to do something. Like I've never been $5 million in debt. I don't know if you have. I've never been able to go 5 million in debt. Like you know.
No. Yeah, no, it's a shifting of the way in which we get to look at things, and I really hear that as well, and everything you're sharing here, and I feel like those that are in that struggle with mental health, it's a shift, it's a finding the place to where the why is, the choice, the values, the decision to find that why that's going to get them up in the morning and keep them moving ahead. And I
Absolutely.
hear so many beautiful, inspiring whys and everything you're sharing, and yeah, just very, very grateful for your presence, for your
Thank
love,
you.
and how you
Appreciate it.
show up in this world as a inspiring, service-oriented individual that's making a difference on this planet. Very,
Yeah,
very
I'm grateful
grateful
for
for you,
everything you're
Darren.
doing as well. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, beautiful. And those that are listening, if there's things that have arisen in our conversations that inspire you, that you have questions about, then feel free to reach out to either one of us. And if people want to get a hold of you, Darren, any other way than the website you said?
Yeah, they can go to hikingfundraiser.com, or you can find me on all the various different social media platforms as well and send me a direct message. And if you want to come out hiking with me sometime, again, we're doing this all over the world. Just go to hikingfundraiser.com and you can see what we're doing with Link Foundation and E2E Elevate to Educate to Take Hike and Build the School. And people come from all walks of life, all age groups, all backgrounds. And it's a great experience. You'll meet great people, great tribe, great vibe, great networking opportunity, and it'll enrich and inspire your life.
Amazing. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
your
Thank
presence,
you.
and great to chat with you today.
Grateful to be here.
See you all next time on Love, Sex, and Leadership.